Welcome to Conversations, where today we have Mr. Cory Cummings, an entrepreneur and coach. He is CEO of Cummings Solutions, which works with individuals and organizations to identify and realize their full potential. His team also works with organizations to solve complex problems through custom technology solutions. For all you strengths enthusiasts, Cory leads with activator, futuristic, ideation, command, and self-assurance. Welcome to the show, Cory. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Where in the world are you coming from today?
North Carolina, right in this middle of North Carolina, this little small town called Liberty. I think we have 3 stoplights now, so we're growing a little bit.
All right.
So right in the middle of North Carolina.
So today we're talking about artificial intelligence, and I have been trying to understand that a little more. And I know for you as a technologist and a coach, you probably have it more figured out than me. So I'm just learning about it and really going to be leaning in here and trying to have you explain to me as well as the listeners a little bit more about the space that it seems like is top of mind for people. And part of that is that we're confused, right?
Well, I think with coaching, there's a very real human aspect that needs to go into coaching, right? So when you're working with a client, you're asking powerful questions. Yeah, you're going through and helping them maybe understand through assessments some of their own personalities, their own strengths, those types of things. What's scary about AI is that you could ask the AI, tell me this person's strengths and how does that apply to this person. So a lot of that analysis that we're doing manually, my word manually there, AI can do for you, right? So the fear is, okay, if AI can do these things, if AI could ask questions, contextualize, then why do you need a coach? Right? So it's the same idea of, looking at McDonald's when they had the boards come out where you could order on the board. Cashiers were intimidated because what about us? Right. So what does that do for us? So I think that's kind of, if I had to kind of guess and look into maybe causing some of that fear is, where does the coaching profession go in the age of AI? Right. And then individually, there's, for certain coaching tasks, the reality is an AI could do it better. So analyzing, for example, a Clifton Strengths assessment would be a great example. You've been doing that for years, but for some of us that haven't been doing that quite as long, being able to upload a Clifton Strength profile and then just ask questions about it, right? Help have the AI kind of almost work as your calculator to go and just really contextualize some of these things and give you some insights into a person based on a certain assessment. Yes, it's scary, but it's also powerful. You look at, mathematicians when the calculator came out, right? It's a very similar concept, and I think it's exciting, but it can also be intimidating if you let it.
Yeah. And I think when I think about it, I think about AI as more partnering with me for those tasks. Now, there's a difference when we start bringing into AI into the coaching conversation, whether it be apart from us, maybe in between sessions or something like that. That to me, I get a little frantic about. It's like, I won't know necessarily how that's going, or will I? Do you happen to know anything about that?
I think the question is regarding kind of AI replacing a coach in a coaching session. Did I understand the question correctly?
Yeah. So what I've heard of is these chat bots, if you kind of deploy these, so it's in between sessions. So I may show up and have a great session with you, and in between, I may have a chat bot that then maybe takes over for the next few weeks until I see you again.
Okay, see, I understand what you're saying. I think there's some power in that, particularly if you're working with a client on achieving certain goals. Let's say, for example, that we have a coaching session And out of that session, the client comes up with we work with them, they come up with a plan to go and, I don't know, make it up. I'm not sure what the thing is, but we have, a 4-step process we're going to go through together. Some of the value I can see is in the automation, and particularly with AI, if the AI knows about that plan, being able to text them encouraging messages along the way, being able to check in with them when they haven't, have you done your devotionals today? We have a goal of creating a consistent habit of, 30-minute devotionals every day. So having that checkup in between that, frankly, I forget to do, I think is a powerful tool. I wouldn't be intimidated by that. Now, what I wouldn't appreciate if the AI then tries to do coaching with the client, right? So I think that kind of crosses a different line, particularly when you're not in control of it or you're not aware of those things happening. But I think as long as you can kind of understand what's going on, what the AI tasks are, it can be helpful.
Yeah, I think coaches still need to have their finger on the pulse of things with their clients for sure.
Sure. And then just looking at things like, if I'm coaching it with a client, and we're working on self-awareness, right? So we do an EQ assessment and we realize there's a challenge here. There are apps out there now that you could actually record, how am I feeling today? You go from green smiley to red mad face, right? And you click a button. Or if I'm throughout the day start feeling upset, or I have some type of emotional response to something that doesn't feel right, I can record that. I click the button on the app. Why am I feeling this way? I feel blank because blank, right? So we're kind of recording this. And what you could do with that data and with AI is, if that data is being saved, like somewhere where the coach and the client can collaborate on that data, right? So we're looking at, over the past 3 weeks, I'm seeing a lot of red faces at 3 p.m. on Tuesdays, right? And that's where me looking at the data, first you got to be able to collect the data, but then me eyeballing the data and trying to pull information out of it. Instead, I feed that data anonymously. Obviously, we want to protect people's identities, but hey, I have a client who has, these patterns of, reporting how they're feeling. Help me make some sense of that. And that's where AI could come in and say, hey, this person on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock is a lot of orange faces, right? So now that creates a coaching moment for the coach to go in and say, okay, let's talk about that. What is it about that 3 o'clock? I get this when I get my emails from my clients about this project update, right? So we can dig a little bit deeper into some of that. So I'm not sure if that necessarily answers the question, but when you look at kind of being able to have that tool set that says, hey, I'm collecting data so that I can help move my client from point A to point B, right? And then being able to have the AI contextualize some of that so that my mind I can't look at data and very easily pull patterns out of it, but an AI can.
Mm-hmm. How do you think coaches can get more comfortable using tools like this?
I think you got to try them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, like for example, I can share a few here just on my screen. So here's a couple that are very easy to go and play with. Can you see my screen?
Sure can.
There's a tool right now. It's tied in with ChatGPT. It's called askyourpdf.com, right? You would go in, you create an account, and you can actually upload documents to that site, right? Askyourpdf.com. So what I've done, if you're looking at my screen, for those of you that are, I've uploaded several different documents, my Clifton Strengths document, spiritual gifts assessment, and so forth. So if I were to go in and just click new conversation within this context, I can actually have a conversation about this document with an AI. So, what are this client's top strengths? And then it's like a chat bot, right? So it goes in, it reads the document, and it tells me the strengths. where it got the information. And then, based on this, what are some things I should be aware of when setting goals with this client? Right. So it's just, so for those that can't see the screen, I asked the question this is a Clifton Strengths results. I asked it to look at the result, read the document for me, and based on the top strengths, give me some things I need to keep in mind. How can I help them meet their goals by leaning into those strengths? And you're seeing the screen for those that aren't, the top three. Number one, leverage their positivity. Number two, engage their intellection. Number three, tap into their input. Number four, recognize their developer talent. So by using these strengths, if I'm working with this client, this particular tool, this particular AI was able to very quickly help me pull some strategies together that I can apply in my coaching sessions. If you take this a step further, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but let's say that I want to say, okay, I have Clifton Strengths, but I also had the Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and I have a Spiritual Gifts Assessment. Each of these documents have an ID that you can actually use within ChatGPT, and you can say, hey, based on these three assessments, give me some deeper insights into this person, right? So that's just kind of where some of these can tie together to be able to provide you more information and contextualize information so that you could go out and potentially do a better job coaching, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, okay, so that leads me to, now that I'm seeing that, how do you know which technology is best for you to use? Meaning, if we're talking about the developers behind it, I mean, it would be like a shot in the dark for me to go on and say, okay, I'm going to try this one. Do you have any?
Yeah. So one thing I would say is, whenever you're working with technology databases, you really want to understand their privacy policies. So if I'm going, one, don't share your client's information in any of this. If you're going to share an assessment, be sure it's anonymized, those types of things. So there's that. But then also you want to kind of look at how they're getting their data. So for example, ChatGPT, it's the wild, wild west, right? I can go to the ChatGPT, ask it a question, and it's going to find the first answer it comes to and give you a really great sounding answer, but it may be completely wrong, right? So what you don't want to do is lean on ChatGPT to do certain things for you, and then just assume that it's right? So you're going to have to validate that information. One thing that's been super useful for me when it comes to academic research, as an example, is ChatGPT. They have a plugin called ScholarAI. So basically what it is, I can actually kind of show you on the screen here. So if I actually do ScholarAI, it actually ties into academic databases, multiple of them, right? So let's say that, please provide me, I'm asking ChatGPT here, please provide me with 5 recent academic sources that discuss increasing self-awareness, right? So we're trying to help a client do this. By using ChatGPT alongside the ScholarAI plugin,
thinking,
yeah. So you see it's using ScholarAI. So now what it's actually doing is it's going and searching that academic database just like you would if you had access to your university's database and so forth. So now it's finding several articles about increasing your self-awareness. You can go take out those articles. It gives you an abstract, right? So I'm just, for the sake of time, I can stop this thing and say, based on the sources you are finding, create a 5-step process for increasing self-awareness.
Certainly, it says.
Yep. So here's
Of course I will.
right. So, and it gives you just a nice outline of some ways that we could work with our clients potentially based on the academic research that exists today, how to go and help you, how to go and do this. So just for those who can't see it, the steps it came up with is engage in perspective talking, participate in reflective activities, increase knowledge on global issues, self-assessment and feedback, engage in collaborative activities. Now, you may hate some of these, you may love some of these, right? You can reorganize and so forth. So, going back to the question, which tools? I think ChatGPT is a good one to kind of start with. Look at some of their plugins, like ScholarAI. There are others like Ask Your PDF. I think those types of tools are probably a good starting point. But they're literally, I mean, tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of startups right now trying to leverage UI for this or that. So I think that when you try to get in too many of those things, I think it gets kind of dangerous. So I would stick today with ChatGPT plugins, and then maybe as time goes on, some of these tools get more proven. You could kind of dip into some of those.
Now with ChatGPT, I saw that you were using, is that the 4.5 or 4.0? It's not the free
Mm-hmm.
version. It's the paid, correct?
Yeah. So the free version gives you some very good answers, but the paid version introduces plugins, which I think is a game changer. So you have third parties. If you pay, it's like $10 a month. It's not super expensive, but if you pay for that, you get access to third party plugins. So ScholarAI being probably my favorite plugin, that can actually tie your ChatGPT session to real time data, which is where ChatGPT 3 doesn't have that. So it's basically the knowledge cutoff for ChatGPT 3 is somewhere in 2021, I think it is. So now you're dealing with at most recent 2-3-year-old data. Whereas with these plugins, I could go get articles from 2023 that were written and published yesterday. So that's kind of the value that paying for the upgraded version kind of gives you. And ScholarAI is just one. I mean, they have like Expedia has one. Like there's so many different. I looked the other day. I think there were like 40 pages worth of plugins that you can tie all this power and contextualization into real-time data. So that's really a big opportunity here.
Now, would you still suggest people kind of validate what it's saying? Like it gave you that article. Do you just trust that article is in fact a live article wherever it?
I mean, I don't. So what I do, I'm a doctoral student at Regent University. So what I do is anything that ChatGPT gives me, I look it up in that database. So I kind of I'd have another tab open that I would then paste the information. Then I would actually go into the article myself, make sure, validate. 99.9% of the time, though, it's correct. I mean, so it's whenever you're using these plugins. Now, ChatGPT 3 will just make stuff up. It'll create references that that looks right, uses real authors. The name looks like it probably could be a thing. And then you go look it up, it just doesn't exist anywhere. So that's, it's always good to validate that, hey, this information is coming in is real. I have found that again, using very specific ChatGPT 4 with ScholarAI, 99% of the time, it is. It's correct.
Good. That's good. And I'm glad to hear that you validate. So we did talk about, so with the free version of ChatGPT, that information is already old. So when we take a look at, let's say, 5 years down the road, what are things going to look like from your view?
Well, I think it's just going to get better. I mean, you look at the pace at which Well, ChatGPT hasn't even been around a year as far as being available to the public. You look at the pace at which it's changing things. Um, I think that accelerates over the next few years. I think what we're also going to see is potentially legislation that limits the use of AI, limits its applications. I don't think you put the genie back in the bottle. I think we're past that point. Um, you look at, even academic integrity, right? I think so. Things like that where you have, how do professors uh, help their students learn and identify cheating? Like that's a big problem, I'm sure, right now, in the academic world. I don't know the answer to that, but it's not going away, right? So I think some mindsets are going to have to change to how do we better help our students learn, for example, in academia, or in coaching, probably manually looking at assessments and trying to figure out and contextualize data. It's going to be like doing math by hand, right? So it's being able to, 5 years from now, I think in coaching, you have all these different tools. I think it's going to be overwhelming, the number of tools that are out there. And frankly, the coaches that are going to do well 5 years from now are the ones that are exploring and experimenting today, right? What's out there? How does that look? How does that apply to me? How do we maintain ethics and maintain integrity as a coach, and use the tools? I don't think those answers are out there right now. I think those are the questions being asked. But I think that 5 years from now, the groundwork that we're doing now to put some of those boundaries around AI are going to be critical, because there's no telling where it could be 5 years from now.
Yeah, and you did mention ethics. So let's go there. When we talk about technology and ethics and coaching and ethics, and it seems like it's just a whole, like you use the word wild, wild west, and that's what it seems to be. So when you're thinking about artificial intelligence and ethics, what kind of bubbles up for you in that arena?
Well, yeah, AI is amoral, right? It's not good, it's not bad. So I think the same criteria we use today for ethics has to apply to everything that you do within AI. I think there's also a reality that there's going to be a need for personal ethics. Being able to create even write it out. What are my personal ethics around coaching? Because it's going to become harder and harder to differentiate between humans and robots, right? And AIs. I shouldn't use the term robot. You think of Terminator, but it's going to be harder to differentiate between human and AI. So I think one is internalizing what is my ethical code, I mean, what is my personal code of ethics, right? And then within, specifically within coaching, okay, what are like some of these coaching organizations? Off the top of my head, I can't think of them. I should be able to, but these coaching organizations that are providing credentials, providing training. They need to be right now? I'm sure they are creating. What are our code of ethics around AI, the use of AI? It can't be so limiting that you don't take advantage of the technology, right? But then it can't be so free that continues to be the wild, wild west. So I guess the way I would answer that question is twofold. One is the personal code of ethics, internalizing that as a coach. And then two is trying to get ahead of this thing now, as organizations, coaching organization that says, here is our stance on AI, what we will do, what we won't do.
And I also think that those codes, and Bellum is going to be, ours is coming out within the next week. And I think it's a work in progress. I think it's something that as we learn more and as AI develops and as coaches, consultants, whatever industry you end up in, I think that as time goes on, we're going to be finding that. I mean, as a Christian, I know what my ethics. I have Christian ethics, and that's my guiding light. Those are my boundaries and whatnot. But I think that as time goes on, I think verbiage is going to be different. I think questions are going to be answered as we start diving in and start utilizing these tools and having those aha moments? And how can we then point it back to ethics, whether we are going to either be utilizing this or not, and for what reasons?
Yeah, and I think that that's another reason to not be so scared of this stuff is to really start digging in, because we want ethical people trying the stuff out, right? So if you're afraid to get in there and play with it and try it, experiment, then you don't even know the right questions to ask, right? So that's what I would just encourage practitioners, scholars, get in there, play with this stuff, figure out where it's going wrong, so that we can build those boundaries around it. But you can't do that if you don't touch it, if you don't, if you're just scared of it and don't get into it. So yeah.
Yeah, and you did note about when we talked about how do we know what tools are best, and you did mention, chat gpt and whatnot, and to look at the privacy. So if I were to look at a tool and look at their privacy, what might be something that would stand out to me that I would say, yes, this is something that perhaps I could use and feel
Yeah.
good
So
about it.
yeah, one of the things is, with chat gpt, there's like a private mode that you can go into. Because basically, ChatGPT, the way ChatGPT works is it actually, all the data that you put into it, all the inputs you put into it become part of its library, right? So it's as you're interacting with it, it's continuing to learn and get smarter, right? But there may be some information that you don't want out there as part of the public domain. Maybe it's proprietary information that you want it to help you analyze, those types of things. So ChatGPT has a mode that you can put it in, where it doesn't actually share that data with the wide world, right? So that's very important. And they have it. I forget exactly how you get to it, but they have documentation on what that looks like. If you don't, within the privacy policy, if they don't have a data retention or a data sharing policy, then they could be selling that data, right? Because data mining it, taking those prompts and selling it. And I think that might be okay in certain dynamics, but particularly in a coaching relationship with if you don't want that, right? So I think that's privacy policies is probably one of the biggest concerns that I have. Beyond that, I mean, you can kind of get into them, and not all these companies have documentation like this, but how do you get your data? How do where do you source your data? Chat GPT, one of the complaints that early on, and still frankly still an issue today, is kind of the first data it comes to, you know what I mean? It assumes that's the correct data. So, as AI gets better, we want to kind of look for things like, hey, how many sources are you looking at before you answer this question? Those type of things. So the privacy policy, where they source their data, and then also how they share the data.
That's a lot. And I feel like people just click a button and that they're not looking at these things. It's just, well, this looks cool. This looks
Agreed.
like it'll work, or this
Yeah,
looks like whatever it is. And I guess it's not a fear, but it's when I think about the information that it's gathering, what if it's wrong information that the chat GPTs of the world is gathering to then send out to people, if it's learning from what
yeah.
their input?
Then a lot of people are going to believe wrong information. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that will just buy whatever they see. But I think it's up to us to be wiser than that, right? Understanding that everything that comes out of these AI tools, right, at least right now, it needs to be validated. It needs to, it can't replace, research. It can't replace ethics, right? So I think it's just being aware of it now, use it, but then take everything with a grain of salt. I think that's how you get through the next 5 years. Now, I have no clue 5 years from now what all this looks like, but it's going to be harder, even harder then. So the reality is there's no way around it. People are going to be fooled by this stuff. Bad data, they're just going to swallow it. And so we got to help them understand and see, okay, I understand that you got this from here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's real or true. Here's what is.
Yes. A lot to know, a lot to learn. What do you say about, on social media that there's, pay whatever, or it's a free course or a paid course? What do you see out there that where people should go? I mean, should they come to you?
As far as like with learning AI, I mean, there's so much out there. I don't even know the right places to tell you to go. There are a lot of good sites out there that have been around for a while that have taught other technologies. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but what I would say is there's a brand new site out there that's trying to teach you about AI. They want you to pay $500. Let's stay away from that. But if there are sites out there that have been teaching technology tools for the last 20 years, Pluralsight comes to mind as a good place that, hey, they're not just putting a website up. They have a track record of teaching you. They have courses that are reviewed by real reviewers that you can get into and start learning a little bit about AI, about machine learning. That's a good place. I will put a shameless plug here a little bit. I mean, so I'm working on software now for coaches. And one of the key things that I'm working on doing is integrating certain aspects of AI into our platform. So just as an example of a tool that we have, we use DISC, driving forces, and EQ for kind of our three main assessment bases, if you will. So one of the things that we've built into our tool is the ability for me as a high D type A activator to be able to write an email in my voice, how I would say it, and then click a button and it'll actually change that wording of that email to make it more palatable for another personality, right? So that's just an example that, the tools that we're working with coaches on that's available would be available. Other things is, being able to look at two personalities and look at where are the conflicts, not just a generalized, well, this type of person. Okay, based on a broader understanding of who I am and a broader understanding of who they are, if I am trying to communicate something clearly to them in this context, what's my checklist? What are the 3-4 things I need to remember in that conversation? So those are the types of things that we're trying to empower coaches with technology, but then also put a lot of guardrails around that. We have to put a little flag next to some of these features and say, hey, this is experimental. Please validate some of this information, et cetera. But we're getting a lot of positive feedback, especially for people like me who, my patience level is not always the highest. Being able to really summarize, my patience tolerance is not super high, but I value accuracy and I value competence, right? So there are these two parts of myself that are always kind of battling, within myself. But this gives me the ability when I'm coaching, especially if I have any type of assessments, to be able to get those key points from this 70-page document, all of which matter. So, yeah, that's something that they can reach out to us. Cummings.Solutions is the website if they wanted to reach out. We'd be more than happy to either, obviously they could use the platform, or we'd be happy to answer any questions coaches have about some of this stuff for sure.
Now, are those available currently for coaches, or are you still in the experimenting?
I would say we're in a beta phase. So we are open to new coaches coming onto the platform at this point. It would kind of be at this point, just reach out to us and we'll get you on the platform. We don't have an automated way to getting coaches in, and it's intentional. We want to make sure that the tools that we're putting out there are vetted. We want to make sure the features work, and especially some of the AI stuff, for all the reasons that you and I have discussed about ethics and different things. We want to take that slow. So if anyone's interested, I believe my contact information will be in here, Cory at Cummings.Solutions, or just come to our website, Cummings.Solutions, and we have a form you could fill out and we can get in contact with you.
And are you on LinkedIn? Can people reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's Jay.
I think it's Jay Cory Cummings or something like that.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Cory Cummings, you're a wealth of information. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you brought to this conversation around AI, around technology. And my hope here is that somebody who is tuning in might reach out and try something and be able to not be so nervous about stepping into AI, because the truth is a lot of the things that people are already using is AI. They just don't realize it. Right?
Correct.
Oh, is there any last words? Any last words from you you'd like to leave us with?
I mean, it's just really exciting. If you let it be, this could be a really exciting time for your coaching practice. This is not bad. These are good problems to have. So I would just encourage you to step into it. Fear is never a good driver. Okay, let's deal with reality. That's fine. We can put boundaries around it. Let's really lean into this thing. I think it can really catapult the coaching industry further if we let it. So I just encourage you to try some things, have fun doing it.
That's right. All right. Well, until next time, you keep doing great things, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.